Babes, how we doing? Today we're talking about the one, the only Mr. Iceberg himself, the president of not only the Galila, but of all of Water 7, who studied under the tutelage of the man, the myth, the legend, Tom. Do it with the boom, Fishman. You know him, you love him, along with Frankie. Um, we're talking about what Iceberg's doing. What is Iceberg doing right now? Because if you don't think that he's working, you haven't been paying attention. That man is building an opposing force to battle against Pluton, which could be what we're seeing with the destruction of Alusha. It's kind of impossible to say. It's really tough to say, like I said in the last video, but we're on a break, so we're going to discuss what is Iceberg up to. I just finished reading the physical copies of the Water 7 piece of the Water 7 arc, which, if you didn't know, I think people just think of it now as two different arcs, but Oda does name the whole thing Water 7. The whole thing is Water 7. So even the part that is Eni's lobby is just Water 7 part like 5 through 9, 5 through 11 maybe. Which I find interesting. But I still think that it's probably the peak of One Piece, and I think it's going to come back with a lot of prevalence and relevancy, especially with what we're seeing right now in the current world. I was doing a lot of research and really just thinking so much and researching about everything happening with the rising tides. What happened with that? Where do we see that around the world? Speaking of Eni's lobby, like I talked about with that whole, what got deleted there, I'm not sure. But the sea levels are going to rise, and that's going to lead to a lot of not very good shit. Which means, yes, we're probably going to be seeing the Noah make its return and be the home to many, many people, because that thing is humongous. I don't know how many people will in reality be able to fit on that ship. There's going to be a lot of different ships heading into probably Mary Joie, the Red Line, for either security or just the final showdown, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Iceberg and everything that has to do with Iceberg, with the stuff that I just read with the flashback, what happens at Eni's lobby, and some stuff with Frankie. So in the flashback, Tom is claiming and that he is the top shipwright in the world. So if we see him, he's the dude. He's literally the guy. He built the Oro Jackson, which sailed the entirety of the world to Laugh Tale and back, and we don't even know how that ship got destroyed, if it's destroyed, where it's at. We have no idea. All we know for sure is that it made it there and it made it back, and I'm curious what that egg is, and I'm sure you are too, but it probably doesn't have too much prevalence. He stands by making that, and that made a very large impact on Frankie especially, but Iceberg as well. That was then Frankie's dream, was to create a ship to do exactly what the Oro Jackson did, if not more, but to sail the entire world and all the seas. Which he's definitely going to accomplish. That's going to be his thing. But what is Iceberg's? Are we done with Iceberg? If you think we're done with Iceberg, you didn't pay enough attention during Water 7. You were not dialed in. You do not get brownie points or extra credit, because that guy is one of the greatest side characters, I think, in all of One Piece. And if you go back, I think you'll agree with me. It kind of takes a refresher to really get into it, but Iceberg's busy. Iceberg's busy as we speak. Granny Kokoro, the fish woman herself, said after, it was kind of fucked up because Cuddy Flam, aka Frankie, was supposedly killed by the sea train before he turned himself into a cyborg. Kind of a great story. They kind of went through it pretty quick, but he's not dead, thought to be dead, and she told him Tom was the top shipwright in the world, and you were his best disciple. It was you. It was not Frankie. Frankie was kind of the outcast, and you see that when we first get to Water 7, but he was kind of more of the outcast. He wasn't his best disciple at all. I mean, a lot of the time he was doing his own thing until the sea train building went underway. He didn't really care, but that was only because Tom's life was on the line, and those two guys loved Tom so much that they would have done anything to do that. But always and forever, Iceberg was studying. Iceberg was learning from this fishman. Although he's not a physical specimen, that guy's a genius. If you remember, he brought together all of the shipwrights who were under different gangs and flags at the time to form one galley law. And that was kind of his thing. After Granny said that to him, he went away and he's like, I will save, or I I will make this city better. Something he said something along those lines. And that's kind of what he did. But I think even on top of that, it goes one step further, and that has to do with Pluton. So last time I was talking a lot about the ancient weapons last week. What exactly are they? Poseidon's probably Shirahoshi. Fucking Vivi is probably Uranus. And then Pluton is some ship with cataclysmic abilities that will destroy the entire world. What that looks like, I have no earthly idea. But that's what it is. Could it be that thing in the sky? Sure. But that's not really the point. The point is we don't know what Pluton is. We just know that Pluton has the ability to destroy. What's interesting about that is I think a little small detail that people don't realize is Tom passed down the blueprints to Iceburg and to Frankie. And we found out that Frankie had been holding onto them in his body once he gets to Ennie's lobby. But if you remember when they were kind of more kid-like, I think teenagers, Iceburg took on the responsibility and he said, I accept the responsibility of this. And even though those blueprints are no longer a thing, I think that they're ingrained and that man's kind of a mad genius when it comes to shipbuilding anyway, that he knows what it is. But if you remember what Frankie said, those are not actually the blueprints for Pluton. Those are the blueprints for the opposing force of Pluton. So we have no idea what Pluton is, where it existed. Could it be something that was built up in the advanced society that Vegapunk's probably going to spill next week? Yes. But once again, we're kind of grasping at straws there. What we're not grasping at is Iceburg. There's a reason that Water 7 continues to be shown. There's a reason that Iceburg is going to become very relevant here in a little bit. And I think it's because what we saw during Water 7 with Aqua Laguna and what we're seeing with the entire world is pretty similar. The raising water levels is going to be a real issue. It's already become a real issue, and they only destroyed one island. Now with the Gorosei collecting the Mother Flame, bringing it back to Imu, they might be able to fire that thing off as much as they want. Probably will. Even Vegapunk is like, I flew too close to the sun. I made a mistake, and that mistake is the Mother Flame. And once they get their hands on it, there's going to be a timer set on the world, and it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good at all. Laugh-Tail will probably be underwater by the time they get there. Elbath will be drowning. The world will be flooded over. Like I said, that's kind of what I think the Void was the first flood, but not 100% sure. I digress. Iceburg is creating that opposing force as we speak. It's been something I think that he's been thinking about ever since pre-time skip the Straw Hats showed up there. Because if you remember when they talked about the Aqua Laguna that came to pass when they were there, that was the craziest one that they've seen yet. By like a lot. Because at the beginning of it, when Polly goes to save Nami and those two train dudes, and it destroys that thing, he's like, it's never even kind of done that. And that wasn't even like close to as far as it went. So I think he's like, okay, well, what can we do in order to make it so we can not only save the island, which Iceberg said, but prepare for rising water levels? Because this is a shock to the rest of the world. The rest of the world's like, oh shit. Probably except Rayleigh and Crocus, like I said, and some remnants of the people who boarded the Oro Jackson. But Iceberg has been planning this. I think that he's been building this ever since that they left. But it's something that he's turning the entirety of Water 7 into a floating island that will not be affected by the rising water levels. And it's because not only is that something that would have helped them anyway, but it's something that's going to become very important towards the end. Because when he creates this opposing force to battle Pluton, which will show up. I mean, Pluton's not going to not show up, but that's going to be the opposing force that cancels it out. Another reason why I think this is going to happen is because I kind of think that we're running out of time when it comes to the ancient weapons. And I think you canceling those two out is fair enough. Like I said, Tom was the top shipwright in the world. The top shipwright in the world now is... It is not Frankie, it is Iceburg. It's Iceburg. Iceburg is the top shipwright in the entire world. And I forget, I think it was Tom that said, you and Frankie, your names will be known across the world. And that's like his His tutelage and his like hype is really high up there for Iceberg. He's going to build Water 7 to withstand the rising water levels as the president and somebody who swore to protect them. But on top of that, he's going to be the one to build the opposing force to fight off against Pluton, because he understands that Tom passed that down so that in case some monster or it already exists and Pluton comes to the forefront, that they will be able to destroy it. Another fact that I brought up, I think 2 weeks ago, was the Gorosei talk about Pluton, and they're like, I mean, if you can find the blueprints, but once again, those aren't the real blueprints. Those are the opposing force blueprints. And he's like, we're passing this down in case that shit comes out, because we know that the greatest shipwrights in the world are in Water 7. That's where they reside. And Tom, or Iceberg, you're that guy. He's that guy. He's building it right now. They are going to become a real asset in the war effort against the world government, against the Navy forces, because this island will float. This island will be able to stand the test of time. Iceberg will be known as the shipwright known across the world. And Tom's going to be known as like the dude who coached up the greatest ship ever and the opposing force of an ancient weapon, all in one dude with horns, and puffs out his chest and says with a boom. But Iceberg's not fucking around. He is building the opposing force as we speak. He's probably already almost done with it, because so is One Piece. And he's gonna make Water 7 some crazy type of floating island that I'm very excited to see. It makes so much sense if you've read Water 7 and if you've been in there, that you know that Iceberg's not fucking around. Iceberg is that dude. He has been building this, and he has the people and the hype around him to do it. So I'm excited to see what he does against them, but let me know what you think. I'm interested because it's kind of a lot when he talks about like the opposing force and everything, but that's what Iceberg's doing. Iceberg is that guy. Do not write him off. Do not think that his greatest deeds are already done. Don't think that at all, because he will surpass his master, which is insane, because Tom was that guy. Tom was also that dude. There's a lot of dudes that are shipwrights in this, but those three especially. That's all I have to say. Leave a like, sub. I think we're almost to 100. That'd be neat. I'll see you next week for the chapter, which should be interesting. I don't know. They're just dropping bombs on us, even still. See ya.